5700 stubs in, and then where it turns to 5875 west, that's kind of a weird corner piece from that plat in there. So what are we doing with that little piece?
I think we were trying to,
Yeah, it looks like for some reason those were divided, but initially, one's 0.15, one's 0.3, so it was probably close to that. So yeah, that's for cities as well.
And I guess the other question is, does Hooper City pump houses have to conform to lot sizes and dimensions that normal lots do?
only citizens, not government.
Well, I mean, people live there, you know, so.
Yeah, in the past for sure. Yeah, the uses has changed.
Because I mean, think of the pump house on Rawson Ranch. Is that full lot size out?
Yeah, it's pretty small.
So we probably have to worry about that stuff.
Probably not, that's a good thought, something to make sure we look into. But I can look into that for sure, can get back to you guys. Beyond that, yeah, that should pretty much be it. I guess it's the first review, so that'll be done, and then we'll respond. It'll pretty early in the cycle. Typically, they've done at least 3 reviews, sometimes all the way to the 4th review.
So, a couple of things. I mentioned this to Malcolm yesterday, you know, in our new subdivision approval process, we have a set of requirements that have to be met in order for that application to be considered complete, and that's when that time starts ticking and moves into the review process. So, just, I asked Malcolm to send me any information that we had, and, in our ordinance, I think it's 10.8.12, F4E, if I'm getting it right. I don't know if it's, I'm trying to do it on my phone, but it specifically says that we have to have final serve letters, not will serve letters, from the different entities providing, like, the water, the electric, whatever. The letter that we have in there for irrigation is just a will serve, and I know we've talked about the issue of how we're gonna navigate that, but that is currently how our ordinance reads, that we're not supposed to have the application until we have final letters.
Do some of those entities even give final letters though?
They all give a final, but kind of through different processes, and yeah, the problem with it's been, since we've adopted the new process, and I understand the intent of the planning commission that we're gonna review something and have the potential to approve it immediately, we wanna make sure we have finals in place, so it makes sense. The problem with that was with the first couple we did, one was a minor and one was a full size subdivision. None of them could really they could get finals, I suppose, but on something that we've never seen. So it was kind of counterintuitive to get a final, go through a review process that changed it a fair amount, and then, needed it, and the final was based on that. So the way we handled it last time was, we started the reviews as preliminary, and then we got finals prior to you guys voting on it.
So, again, I think.
So, and the way we handled that was we made sure they knew, like on the checklist, I informed them, use isn't complete, but the reviews are beginning.
Do you think we could maybe, if that's how we're gonna do this, because I understand that can kind of create a hassle for them on the Hooper irrigation side. They don't wanna really turn in those watersheds and then we need to get a final if we're not gonna approve it.
Sure.
But if we're gonna follow what the ordinance says, it specifically spells out it can't be considered complete until we have the final, and the complete status is what moves that into that review cycle. So maybe we need to update our ordinance just to accommodate them, but also safeguard us so that we're not moving into that and then have an issue down the road where they can come back and say, hey, you told us this, and your ordinance says this, but now you're doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we could update it for sure. I'm not exactly sure what that looked like, but we could propose a discussion on how to make it work. It's tricky because those are different parties, because in some ways, it would be nice if the different utility providers would change their process to match our process.
Yeah.
But, so, because it's circular in nature, like that's what I remember now, we ran into Taylor West River Water specifically, in working with our attorney, they refused to issue one until we give them approval. see how we can update it and make it work. I think we can work through it. It's just gonna have things that we have to work through. Other than that, on this one, those are kind of the things, those are some good thoughts, so I'll make sure I work with Matt to make sure the road requirements are met.
Yeah,
And
can
if
you
they're
pull up
not,
that,
that we,
can you pull up that plat again?
go to the city council.
Not on the GeoGeez, but on the actual
Oh, you want us to go flat?
blueprint, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's 6:57.
We wanna do, flag lots real quick, or just review it in our meeting.
I threw it for some discussion time in the meeting, so I figured there wouldn't be, so we can talk about it briefly, it won't be much. I did real quick, like I said, I'll pull that up, Josh, right before you get in it, but I did real quick want to give you guys a quick update. One, like Amanda said, on our next planning commission meeting, we're gonna have the TRC checklist that we need to create. That's kind of been a little bit of the issue with inconsistencies. We need a checklist, and these items are all in, and specifically what they are, and I think that'll kind of help solidify the ordinance, and so the developers know once these are in, I'm compliant, and while we look at that, we could revisit some of the inconsistencies with our new ordinance and the actual, reality of what we're seeing. So that's will be on our next meeting. So just kind of I'll send you guys maybe some templates of some other cities, and also that Hanson that did ours, they gave us a template, so we won't be starting from zero. And then lastly with that, so we need the TRC checklist. And I wanted to give you guys a quick update. Really the flag lots. When we talked about the flag lots, we also talked about oversized structures. That got a little more traction with the planning commission initially, so that was the one we ran with first. We're just revisiting flag lots to see if you guys would like to create an ordinance for that for recommendation. But the city council has kind of reviewed it twice now, gave some comments. I think we're gonna final ordinance, and Darren's gonna draft that for us. So once he drafts it, they should vote on it.
That's for oversized structures.
Yeah, what it accomplished, just so you guys kind of know where your recommendation went. It'll increase the allowed accessory structure size to the size you guys recommended. It increases the detached accessory dwelling unit size to 50% of those. They didn't allow it to grow with the CUP though, it's just capped. So even if you gave a CUP, you can't grow it. Allow one DADU and one IDU per primary dwelling, which is what you guys had said. Allow the ADU to reach center of primary residence. They wanted to do that, so instead of being behind the rear yard, it can go to the center of the residence. Can't go to the parallel. So you have like a 20-foot width of a home, it can go 10 foot up. That makes sense.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Like if you had a home on the lot, and here's your lot, and you have your home right here. It used to be that it had to be behind the furthest rear point of the home. Now it can go, we'll take the measurement here, so if it's 20 foot, it can go to the center. So your ADU can come up halfway of your home.
So we're
So
talking
it'll be
about
set, it'll be
wide
behind the
lots.
home still, and it'll still have to meet setbacks, so it'll probably be hard for a lot of people to squeeze in, but if you had a big side yard, you could bring it up halfway to your home, as long as it's behind the halfway point. So that was what they wanted to do.
There is 7 left.
Yeah. Lastly, required 2 parking spaces for DAU, required 2 parking spaces for primary, made the violation daily, and they made it so all ADUs can be 960 square feet minimum, or maximum, 960 maximum. Because when we made it, we didn't address R3 and R4, we increased the size. So in R3 and R4, instead of being 50% of what their max is, which would have been at like 500, they can get to 960 still.
Thanks for that. That makes sense.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, no problem.
Here, everybody.
get started here. I want to welcome everybody to our Planning Commission meeting tonight, October 9th. We'll get started. First, Commissioner Bates will give us offer the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Commissioner Prince will offer the reverence.
If you repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered here today to discuss the needs of our community and grateful to live in this beautiful city and the country that we live in. And we thank thee for the freedoms and blessings that we enjoy here, and we ask that thou would please help us to use those freedoms and blessings to bless those around us. We're grateful for those that are in attendance today, and we ask that thou would please help us to be able to listen with an open mind and an open heart, and to be able to understand the needs that are expressed. And Heavenly Father, please help us to be able to make good decisions that are based in truth and wisdom. And we're grateful for all of those who have sacrificed to provide what we enjoy in this country. And we ask that thy Spirit would be with us throughout the remainder of this meeting, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
First action item tonight is a public hearing for the Agnes Farm subdivision located at 5688 South, 5900 West in Upper for Nelson Homes. We will entertain a motion to enter a public hearing to receive public input.
I'll motion that we enter a public hearing for the Angus Farm subdivision located at 5688 South, 5900 West, Upper Utah, 84315.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Prince and a second from Commissioner Greener. If there's anyone here tonight who has some input, we will hear it.
Mr. Zog is here, the property owner, and I'm with Nielsen Homes, but,
Yeah, I mean,
we're
I would like to
representing the property.
have a presentation before people comment.
Sounds good. Malcolm, do you have a presentation for us?
Sure. Hold on real quick. Looks like we have, let's see, it's Nielsen Homes is the developer on this. It's Brent Zog's property. It's looks like it's a total of 22 lots, if I count right there. Half acres, meets our current zoning. Done some work with UDOT to work on the conditional access permit, which would require this alignment here. We kind of talked in our work meeting about what that would require to make that alignment take place. Just received a complete application from the staff standpoint, started the first review, should have that review done Monday, and then we'll continue the process of the review. I think that's everything from a preliminary high-level standpoint for this subdivision. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Well, I did want to know, just from a public hearing standpoint, for the planning commission, you know, this subdivision is relatively new to us too. We've seen it a little longer than you guys have, and are just reviewing it. You guys wanted public hearings in the first when they get a complete application so we can get it done in the process. Kind of discussing that and looking forward, we might look at doing public hearings after the first review cycle, just so we have a little bit more time to synthesize all the information for the subdivision and maybe have some discussion first. But we'll still try and do it really early in the review cycle. Let us know if you have any problems with that, but we'll try and make sure we have one. And then in terms of the public hearing, we'll take all the notes from a staff standpoint, make sure that we have them and that it's revised and done according to all the city ordinances, but the staff's not gonna respond to public comment specifically. If you guys would like to, obviously, at your pleasure, but we won't, and the staff's not gonna be corresponding directly back and forth. We'll just make sure we take notes and we can pull follow up after the meeting with any residents that have concerns that relate to our review process.
Okay, thank you. Any input from Milson Homes or property owner?
Come up, just come to the mic and she'll flip the switch for you and then we can hear you on our recording.
I'm Steve Anderson with Nielsen Homes, and Brent Zog is the owner. But Brent has decided to subdivide his ground. This development is following what the current zoning is.
Recording in progress.
Oh, I'm in trouble. But it's, we've got everything worked out with UDOT, with all the water companies. We are going to put an irrigation line in along 5500 west over to 5900 west, which will, because they're bringing irrigation to the elementary school there. And everything seems to be fine. We'd love to answer any questions or concerns or anything that, as a planning commission, that you would have. We really appreciate the time and your staff and all that they've done to help with this project and participation with UDOT and all that.
Mr. Anderson,
Oh, this.
thanks for coming. Hey, I do have one question about the road where it enters in 5700 south.
Yes.
It crosses over the west. Behind that Hooper City parcel that ends in 0041, it looks like the road intersects the Claire Roy Manning Trust. What does that look like right there?
Okay, so when you actually, I have a drawing of that. We can actually fit all the curb gutter and the asphalt, and this is what we worked out with Jared to, because we were going to actually put a temporary kind of curb in there because Mr. Manning doesn't want to work with anybody at this time. We did not want to put that road into 5700 West. We wanted to go halfway in between the properties or between the roads and have a stub there. That was Mr. Zog's preference to do that, but UDOT said absolutely not. We had to line it up with 5700 West, and so that's why that goes there, because Brent didn't want to have a road like that right next to his existing home, but that is the only way that UDOT would allow this to happen at all. So, and I thought we'd have to kind of cut the corner and everything there, but we were able to, and I can show you on another drawing, or maybe, and you have those too, but we actually can get the curb gutter and the full width of asphalt in there to make that radius without entering Mr. Manning's property. What this does for Mr. Manning, though, it gives him a stub for future development if he ever develops, because UDOT will not allow, and there's nowhere off of 5900 to get access to his property, so this would be the only place for him to have access to. So it really is beneficial for the Mannings also.
No, I appreciate that. That's just something I would like to see, because I think that's kind of a strange stub out there, and I can't picture that in my head, from the full width to a reduction to the 30 feet, and then it's widened back out again.
Right, and that's actually not the drawing, Malcolm. That's an old. This is on the drawings that you reviewed. Let me show you. And the good thing, this is, we actually did this at Jared's request, how we did this. So we don't get the little bit of curb and gutter, but we get the full width of asphalt, enough coming in here for people to make their turn here, and that's it. Because we offered to Jared that we'll temporarily do a kind of a radius here, and then when this develops, we can put that in. He said, no, I'd rather see it done correctly now on this side, and if you can have enough asphalt to make the full turn there, and which we were able to do that, so.
So did you have to move that road further south?
No, we did not have to.
Or just make a wider?
Which page are you on in that plan set, Steve?
It's 304.
Try and get it up to the rest of the planning commission.
Let me see if there's
Because
a
we're
better.
pretty tight on lot 1 already on square footage, and I want to make sure that we're not encroaching into lot 1 further.
It does not encroach into lot 1 at all now. Zero encroachment. Lot 1 will remain as the given square footage of, what was it, 20?
20,438.
Yeah, so it's 430 feet over the required of minimum of 20,000.
Right.
But we're not, that doesn't encroach on that lot.
Okay.
That's square footage is outside of the road.
Okay.
So that's what Jared wanted to see, is to have enough asphalt in there to make the turn, and then and everything will be stubbed, all the utilities will be stubbed for future stubs from Mr. Manning.
Okay.
And we didn't have to actually move, we put exactly the portion that's on the south side of the road and kept the setbacks for the house that are required. As you can see, Malcolm there, if you look at Brent's house, we have still no, that doesn't show the setbacks, but there's more, the setbacks, it doesn't violate any of your setback code.
Perfect.
The lot one's not really part of the subdivision.
Yes, we're creating it because the whole, his house is associated with the whole farm, so we had to create a lot for that home. So it becomes one of the 22 lots, but it has an existing home. So we couldn't
So how
just
does
leave
that
it.
reconcile with the frontage of 130
Steve,
on the existing house?
can you walk back to the mic?
Oh,
Make
that
sure
would be
that
better.
Thank you. That's a good question. What is that?
Well, because you have certain setbacks or certain widths for your lots. We can leave it out of the subdivision. That's not a problem, but I don't see any reason to do that, and it meets all the required lot widths and setbacks that are required.
What do you think on that, Malcolm? It's like, doesn't really matter, right? Like, it's an existing property, its lot dimensions aren't changing, so. So I'm just saying that I don't think it's a part of the subdivision, is what I'm saying.
So the way that this parcel sits right now is the existing home on there along with all of this, and we're carving that off.
Yeah, because the existing home sits with the farm. It's part of the 15 acres.
Can you pull it up on GeoGizmo?
So the farm is part of his total, his home is part of the total acreage. He doesn't have it carved out as an existing lot that I'm aware of. Right? Okay.
So if this plat was right, then the frontage would be 114 on that property, which would not match with what our ordinances are as far as the frontage requirements. So we would have to have it meet that.
Well, how do you look at that? But you can also look at frontage of 152 because it's a corner lot.
But does the home
But that's
face
frontage
west?
on a.
Yeah, the front of the lot is,
Is actually, we can't even keep the front of the lot. UDOT is going to make us, UDOT, I believe, is going to take away his driveway. So that's one of the issues we have with UDOT is they want to take away his driveway.
So if we were to take that enough frontage out of that parcel to make that,
well, I guess that opens another
Well,
question. If there anything
the
is,
corner lot, frontage includes any frontage on a road.
that's not how it
Does it have to do with what way the house faces?
Well, it's the address of the house, plus there's other ordinances that say things like your utilities have to come in from the front of the lot. So,
Well,
Yeah.
utilities are existing in this case.
But you're calculating the frontage is generally on whatever road it is on. So on a corner lot, it would be, you'd have two roads that you have frontage on, but you don't get to combine those in calculation of your frontage.
Because now the back of the lot is, well,
Matt, could you speak, and these are things we can definitely work on in the back end, but could you speak a little bit? So this lot would be in compliance currently, right? So it's existing and in compliance. We might be further creating a problem somewhat, but not significantly. How do you view that? How should we work through that? Or, I mean, there's a couple that we could create an ordinance for. This is a pump house, right? It actually has a Hooper City usage, so I'm not really sure it's even, where it's municipal property. I don't know if it's required. I don't know. Those are some thoughts. And then two, we could create an ordinance for a pump house that could have a separate, function and separate uses. I don't know why we would have residential frontage and square footage requirements for a pump house, but
it's not the pump house, I'm talking to lot one, that is existing house.
he's talking lot one.
is existing house. I get you.
Yeah, the frontage on that's 114 feet.
Oh, I get you.
So if we're calling it a lot of this subdivision, it doesn't have the correct frontage.
But how do you, a lot on a corner lot, you can choose, you have a ton of frontage. You have that whole entire street.
But it's
on
an
the
existing
corner.
house facing a certain direction and already has an address. The address of this is going to be a 59.
But if it becomes a corner lot, he is correct. He gets to choose the frontage and he gets to choose what is considered the front of the house.
And our driveway will not be over there anymore. We've got them, and even that, a driveway does not consider.
Yeah, he definitely
frontage of the
could.
house.
If you're taking the home
So-
down, right? You're taking the existing home down?
No, but I don't believe anything requires that to be taken down. And now, he'll actually have the whole entire front on the state road will be frontage too. 5700 will be frontage, so he has 3 frontages. He has more frontage than any house.
So you don't get to
And I
combine it.
don't think.
But you don't get to combine it, but he's already said that you can choose which individual
Right.
one. So if that's the case, it's 150 feet or good.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I understand, so for the future, if you have an existing home and currently we consider the frontage the front of that home, and then they come in and they subdivide, and that home stays the same and it still faces the same direction, they can say, even though the home faces this way, we're now going to use this portion as the frontage.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And UDOT is not going to even let us use the front of that home, which is really kind of a sad deal. That's not your problem, that's our problem.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understand so that going forward, we know how to look at these, because this is a little bit different, so. Okay.
Thank you for. So, anyway.
And I don't know,
It's a
do
public
we-
hearing, I should be sitting down.
Do we need to bring up the concern as far as maybe needing to get an exception with city council, just so they're aware of what we discussed in our work meeting?
I think that'd be great. Let them know, and we'll
Okay.
work through it. Let them know if we need to.
So UDOT requires that we have 660 feet between intersections, but the Hooper City ordinance on an arterial road is 800 feet in between intersections. So the concern is, right now, between 5600 and 5700, it already doesn't have the 800 feet. We already have a road there on the west side. We just need to find out, and I think the attorney's going to look into this, if we would look at this and we're just extending that further east, or if this is considered a new intersection because we're adding another side that's going to be feeding into 5900. And if so, then it would not currently meet what the ordinance is as far as that 800 feet, but the city council can grant an exception in certain circumstances. And so we just need, just so you're aware that we're going to look into that and see if we would even need an exception, or if we can just go forward with it since that road's just being extended, or if we do need to get an exception because of the fact you're bringing another set of
Which
cars.
road would need the exception though? 57?
5700, right? Is that
Why
what we
wouldn't-
talked about?
can't you say 5600 would be the exception? Because it's an existing road, this is an existing road, UDOT's requiring it, it's the only way that you could even develop that. It would be impossible to put an 800-foot road, and
Sure.
since, at least beginning of, even back when Hooper was established, 660 feet was a considerable block.
I think they're just making you aware
Yeah.
that that could be an issue, but
Okay,
Malcolm and I will be working on that.
okay.
Just didn't want you to be surprised by it. It might not be anything to worry about, but we did discuss it in our work meeting.
Okay. All
And
right.
then, sorry, one other question for you.
You bet.
I was present on the concept meeting for this subdivision, and in my notes, Jared had said something about needing to make sure that the storm drains are gonna drain to the south in order to make the piping work. Is that something that
Yeah.
has been done?
And I've worked over this with Jared on that drainage.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you.
All right, now, well, maybe we better have a public hearing, then I can answer questions. Sorry.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Like to come up to the mic, love to hear your comment.
We just have a question on how
If
far
you could-
north.
Could you come up to the mic, please?
Come up to the mic and give us your name and if you're a Hooper resident or not.
Anna Tracy, and the property at 5600 South and 5900 West is in a Treese Family Trust. That's us, right there. And so we want to know how far north this subdivision's going, and if it's going to border on our property.
Does that show on there?
Yes,
Martin?
I can point it out if you'd like.
Okay,
Yes, please.
that'd be great.
It does not extend to 5600 South. 5600 South is still north of this property, so you have Mills, I think it was Mills? Yeah, Roger Mills, and his property north of this, and then there's other properties. But it's south of 5600 South. It does not extend to, does not extend up that far.
What's the property line? Yeah, I can't.
The only property adjacent to the north is owned by Roger Mills.
Oh, okay, I see that.
And I had a question on that north property line. Is there a ditch there right now?
Brent can answer.
There's no ditch.
There is on the
The east.
east that we were going to pipe, and that water is water to get to Roger's property, that we will keep that intact for him. He's the last user on that ditch.
Malcolm, will that property line to the north, will that require a land separation fence, usage fence?
Yeah, well,
Also, when we went over the subdivision ordinance, because there is a ditch there, have we notified, I don't know if we've talked to Hooper Irrigation and let them know the process as far as notifying the people that use that ditch, so that they're aware and can bring up any concerns during this review process. Do you know if that's happened?
I do, yes.
it's gone to irrigation, I think it's gone before their board. If they've explicitly let all the conveyance and people, I don't know, I can follow up though to make sure users are aware.
Okay. So I think there's like a 20-day window or something like that, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look at the ordinance again.
And Brent and Roger are the only two users on that. That's why the ditch.
Okay, do we have any more public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
We have a motion motion from Commissioner Greener and a second from Commissioner Prince. Do we have any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do you have any discussion through the planning commission on this?
So I do have further questions, more, I guess, so for you, like, for example, lots 6 and 9. So if they're calling 5675 to get the frontage, does that mean that does the house have to face that direction?
No.
Or face whichever direction I want?
Yep.
Because if I had a lot in the cul-de-sac, I'd want, it to be in the cul-de-sac, so. Okay.
Anything else?
Just the things that we talked about, I guess, can staff send us updates on those items?
If it's appropriate, I'll give just a real quick recap. We're gonna look at the existing pump house dimensions, setbacks, work with Matt, and make sure that we're, compliant with that, and it can be an exception, or if it needs to meet, or if we have to change an ordinance to. Lot 1, which was Brent's current home, make sure that we work that out. We've talked about that one pretty well, but we'll make sure then the 800-foot problem, confliction with our existing ordinance. The land use separation fence got brought up, we'll make sure those are in place, and then users of irrigation. I think that was everything.
And then just the fact that our ordinance currently requires final letters, and we have a will serve letter on some of those, so.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is discussion on flag lots. Malcolm, do you have something you want to walk us through on this? Through our notes here?
Not in depth, no. I haven't done any work specifically on it. Before I did that, flag lot 1, we brought up oversized structures, and that seemed to be received well, and that was, a good update, and it seemed like City Council really was excited about it as well. I just wanted to get some of these example ordinances in front of you guys, see if you guys have a general interest in drafting an ordinance, and then kind of gauge, see if there could be a little bit of discussion back to staff, how you would like that to be drafted. Would you like some work meetings that you guys are involved in, where I bring in Jared, for instance, because he'd be pretty heavily involved with the utility aspect? Just kind of how you guys would like to see it drafted, if this is something you guys would like to see drafted from, just from a discussion standpoint. Wanted to gauge the interest again before we put some resources to it.
So I read through some of these that you put in here, and thanks for putting those in here from the other cities. And I like kind of Plain City's verbiage in here about they just don't favor flag lots, and that they're not going to create them by subdividing property. So it's only on existing land block. Some of the other cities in there don't really point that out. But I don't know. I mean, you mentioned you're seeing a few requests for these.
Yeah, we get at least a monthly inquiry about flag lot. Right now, we just don't have any ordinances to support it at all. They're generally similar, like you described. It's never for development purposes. Generally, just for existing landlocked pieces would be the application that would maybe resolve some of that. But
I agree with Travis. As I read through these, I thought that Plain Cities seemed to be the most conservative, because it sounded like, if I understood it correctly, first they would have to have a conditional use permit, and I don't know how this would be done now with the new legislation, because there is actually references that the City Council would have to approve it, but where we are now the land use authority and the final say on subdivisions, I don't even know if that's how that would go with something like that. I know a lot of the concern with those types of themes has centered around emergency vehicles and their access. I know there were some concerns mentioned about addressing with the post office. I think that there's a reason why we don't allow them, and it would be nice why that decision was made and what some of those issues were. I did call the Weaver Fire District and talk to David. He mentioned he'd spoken with you too. And he said, you know, there are certain criteria that has to be met, and they kind of look at those case by case. Most of the time, if you have a 150-foot drive, they require a 20-foot turnaround, and you have to be within 500 feet of a fire hydrant for the structure. But he said that's not always set in stone, that they've had some come in that maybe they couldn't get it any closer than 600 feet. Excuse me, so they required the property owner to put in sprinklers inside of their home that they wanted to build. And so I think there's several like entities maybe we would want to check with to see if this is something we even want to pursue. And I think it's a good idea to go back and see why they were not allowed in the first place. I lean more on the side of not with some of the things that I've heard, but you know, maybe there's some weird circumstance that we would want to look at it. I don't know, I just want to make sure that we look at the whole picture before we make a decision.
My opinion is, I don't think we should look, I don't think we should look at it. It's been looked at before, and the answer is no. I feel like it just opens up the city to lawsuits, because people will be like, oh, well, I meet 4 out of 5 of these requirements, and why don't I get this? And I think it just is a slippery slope that'll turn into a mess.
So, do we have any idea, this might even be an impossible question, how many lots this would impact in Hooper City? There's no way to even know that, is there?
We could research it a little bit, I'm sure, and find examples of flag lots, and then take some type of estimation of how many would develop, you know, in a given time, and get an idea. But my gut, and so that being said, I have no idea, but my gut would be initially it could be quite heavy. I think there are a few landlocked pieces that come in frequently, and can we do anything? It's always no, not right now, but I think the first year or two you could maybe expect a handful for sure, and I think it would probably get pretty stagnant to 1 to 2 a year, but that's just my gut reaction.
Then do we have anything in our ordinances to prevent this from happening going further? To where you can't landlock somebody like that?
Yeah.
That's in there? Okay, good.
So I know that there was some criteria in some of these samples that you put in here too, that they require it to be 135% or 125% of the current requirements on square footage in that zone. And so that might be something to take into consideration too. I know that excludes the STEM, but when you're looking at, well, how many pieces of property in Hooper would this actually, you know, possibly affect? If we put in a parameter, something like, well, we didn't want it to be more than 135% or 150% what the current allowed square footage in that zone is. I don't know.
I guess I'm thinking a lot more further down the road, like 10, 15, 20 years from now, when things are more developed and, you know, maybe we have a full entire septic or sewer system, and almost every 1 acre lot in the city is like, oh, I've got this ground behind my house, I can put a flag lot in, and it's just, I feel like it will turn into a mess.
And I know there's some concern too about the shared drive and there being issues with that down the road too. Something else to take into consideration.
But that's, to Commissioner Greener's point, you know, if somebody's looking at their lot and saying, hey, I could put a flag lot in behind, I like if we were to put in an ordinance that it's not to subdivide. It's got to be existing, different ownership in the back. It couldn't be, I'm going to subdivide my 5 acres and put in a flag lot behind. So, because I think that would eliminate, if it's in the ordinance, that you can't subdivide and put in a flag lot.
Then what are people asking for now? Isn't that exactly what the people have that they're asking for right now?
They don't have adequate frontage.
And my understanding, if I read through these samples correctly, is they're limited to only one. They can't put in a subdivision where they're putting multiple lots and include as part of that a flag lot. It's basically, I got a one-time deal, which I'm not saying I'm necessarily in favor of it, but you know, when we do ADUs or we do things like that, you're putting in another dwelling back behind the primary residence, and so granted it's still on that same parent parcel, you're not subdividing it off, and there could be issues, like I said, with that drive that goes back, and the property owners that are going to be affected by that are adjacent to that. But if it's only one, I look at that a little bit differently than if they're able to go back and do a whole bunch, which I think would be prohibited based on these ordinances that are in here.
Do you know what the majority of the requests are? Is it property owners that want to subdivide part of their parcel? Is it like a landlocked piece of property owned by somebody separately that?
Generally, it's a landlocked piece of property owned by someone separately. Similar to like the Fisher property that got pushed around for quite a while. A lot of people wanted to buy that and put one home on it. But it was our current ordinance that would, more or less prohibit flag lots. It has to be on a fully improved public road. So a 60-foot road and asphalt, and it becomes cost prohibitive, and so no one could do like a 5-acre parcel that didn't have frontage. They just had to, subdivide it fully, but then they could only get, yellow 4 or 5 homes generally, so then or they couldn't put their own home on it and just have a farm type thing, because we wouldn't let them put a stin back to it that wasn't a full public road. And then they couldn't do that for obvious reasons, too expensive.
Well, but there have been the people that have done that kind of near the bend up to 4,000. There's a whole, subdivision put in there that was basically that. And they were forced to put in a full public road for their 3 or 4 lots, so. Once again, it's like an equitable thing. Was that fair to that guy if we change it now?
I guess, just moving forward, we're all relatively new working together in board, so how do you guys want to see this process because from a staff standpoint, I think most staff is behind this idea and could get behind it in a limited status and it could be productive. That being said, we don't ever want to, spend much time on something that we want to gauge some interest first from the elected officials, obviously. So how would you guys like to see these? When we have a concept, it's kind of tricky sometimes because right now I understand there's a little bit of conflicting opinion, which I appreciate and like. Would you guys like it maybe on the next agenda if it just got put to a vote, like to draft the ordinance, even if that makes sense, or if it, you get what I mean? How should we gauge these to see to move them forward or not? Or you can't understand where I'm coming from?
Could we have, possibly maybe on the next meeting, have Jared from Public Works come in and talk to us about any concerns that this would cause utility-wise, or some of the reasoning behind why we don't allow those currently? And then maybe, I don't know if there's any other experts that would be able to come in and speak to that. Like I said, I tried to call the fire district because I know part of the concern has been emergency vehicle access, and he says, we generally don't get involved in making the decision. We just, if you come to us, we say, these are our requirements that you have to have.
I think a work meeting could be productive if you guys are open to that. I could get Jared here for sure. I think he would cover a lot of the expertise basis. So he'll cover road for sure and utility. I think we could probably have a pretty productive conversation with Jared being involved. If there's anyone else you'd like, let me know. But we could have a work meeting, and then would you guys want to have it as a motion at that point to draft or not draft? Does that make sense? So not that we would obviously vote on it, draft ordinance or not, or Matt want to lend some expertise on how we could consider it.
You don't necessarily need a motion. I think if you just get indication that they'd like an ordinance drafted for their review, it's not something that's a final decision, and then once the ordinance is drafted, that's when they can motion it. But if you just get indication that that's something they'd like to see, that's fine as well.
So does a work meeting and then just seeking a majority indication type thing, we obviously see, oh yeah, there's enough here that it's worth it. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, I just think it would be a good idea to get a little bit more education and be informed before we make a decision if we want to move forward with it. I currently, based on what I've heard, lean more against it, but maybe things have changed since we didn't allow that before, so I think it's good to at least have an open mind and try to listen. And maybe this will give us a little bit of time to talk to people that, served years ago and were part of that decision-making process, and gather a little bit of information from them as to why that was made that way.
Do you think could we try and invite somebody from Weaver County for a fire? Because I think they're kind of our
I think it's pretty, pretty helpful generally. I would imagine maybe could even zoom in at a minimum or.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? Alright. Okay, we'll move on to the citizen comment portion of our meeting. Keep in mind that your comments keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please come to the microphone and give us your name and whether or not you're a Hooper resident. All right. Nobody wants to say anything tonight, huh? Okay.
We was having a family meeting, so you're fine.
Glad you could have it here. Okay, if nothing, then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All fair.
Hey, if you're gonna have family meetings, next time bring snacks.
I think Sherry was.
Why, no, I'm talking, no, I meant like funeral potatoes, and
Oh, you're
more like dinner.
talking.
Yeah, some of us haven't been home yet, so.
Do you guys have any questions?
So,
Here every day.
so does that